Happy Monday night, everybody! It's Monday Night Live on Facebook, and tonight's topic is going to be the Celtic legends of the Sidhe. And it is spelled Sidhe, but it's pronounced she. So I'm just going to talk about a few things while people hop on and they get their notifications. If you want to know more about the legends of the Sidhe, this author that put this book together is a great person. He's an artist, and his name is Brian Froud, and he does an excellent job at the illustrations of the legends of the fairies. The fairies are the other word for the Sidhe, and we're going to go into a lot of different things tonight. Because this is a huge topic, and there are so many stories and myths and legends that go along with all of these different kinds of Sidhe or fairies that exist in many, many different accounts throughout history. So while you guys are watching this evening, I want you to shout out and let me know if you have any family stories of fairies or Sidhe or anything that's passed down in your family. I would love to hear about it. Hey Paige, hey Nancy, hey Chantel, yes, hey Tiffany. I'm going to do a few shout outs. Hey Scott, hey Lorana, hey Lana, hey David, hey Paige, hey Georgia, Ariana, George. So let me get started with some stuff, and I want you guys to chime in, and then I'm going to take a few comments. Hey, Amanda. So some of the names that we have throughout all the writings in history of calling them different things. Some call them the gentry, and it's said that the reason that they called them the gentry is because of their very tall and very elegant stature, and their very what they said was shining speech. Another name for the Sidhe were the shining people, and actually Sidhe means people of the hill, the people in the hill or under the hill. But in Ireland, most of the writings that I found, they referred to them as the good people or the gentry. So the word Sidhe refers to people of the hill, or a mound or a hill where fairies live. Now we ask, okay, in history, hey Betty Joe, hey AJ, how did they get into the hill? Like, why are they in the hill? So I go back through history looking at it, and it seems that they refer to them as the Tuatha Dé Danann, or the people of the goddess Dana. And the Milesians invaded Ireland thousands of years ago, and they battled and defeated the Tuatha Dé Danann and drove them underground, where it is said that they remain to this day in the hollow hills, or she mounds, or fairy mounds. So that's why I think that they call them the people of the hill or the people of the mound. And so a lot of the mounds, the burial mounds in Ireland, are kind of really sacred, because that's where they say that the fairies stay, and they kind of exist in that area. So the area that the Tuatha Dé Danann are in right now is in between place called Tirnanog, which is a mythical place. And also Tirnanog is supposed to be a mythical island west of Ireland. Well, a mythical island west of Ireland is supposed to be High Brazil. And High Brazil is sort of like a mythical place that is west of Ireland also. And we're going to do another episode just on High Brazil, because just the legends from High Brazil are very, very fascinating, and it's too in-depth to go into right now. Patty O'Brien, hey, you should have some experiences or some family legends that you can chime in on. I want to hear if you guys have any family stories about fairies that your parents or grandparents may have talked about um, when they were alive and living. Um, the belief in the Sidhe or the fairies is part of pre-Christian religion, which survived for thousands and thousands of years. Let's see, I have a Rosemarie has a comment. It's late there. Yes, ma'am. I'm surprised you're still up. Yes. Celtic legends from Glasgow, Scotland, I'm very interested in. And if you want to email or message me some of those, whenever you have time, I would love to be in on that and kind of help with that. See, she says, and have just moved to England, so I'm dying to hear something new. I don't know that I have anything new, but I have so many folklore books on this topic. It's hard to even get started on this, and I don't want to go into too much detail because then we're just going to get lost in the legends. But so let's start back at that beginning. So the Milesins and the Tuatha De Danann battled, and the Tuatha De Danann were drove underground, and that's why they call them the people under the hill, or the people of the hill. But yet, they also refer to the Tuatha De Danann as gods in between. They were like gods, but not like gods, pointing to the fact that they were somewhere in between godlike and human-like. So they supposedly had very extreme intelligence and excellent knowledge. They taught skills and trades to mortals, such as protection, healing, teaching them their skills like smithcraft, working with metals, metallurgy was one such skill that they taught to mortals. Herbology, a lot of healing with herbology was taught by the Sidhe to mortals. So that's very interesting. So this, they were very intelligent people. Oh, I wanted to tell you, let me read you this. This was really cool right here. Let's see. Okay. These godlike people or godlike creatures control the ripening of crops and the milk yields of the cattle. So they control the natural elements. Also, therefore, this was the way that the Tuatha De Danann kind of fought back against the Milesins. Once they were driven underground, they controlled the crops and the cattle, and so that if the people above ground did not give them offerings on a regular basis, they spoiled the crops and made all the milk turn sour from the cows. So, and in those days, butter was a huge commodity. And I know that they used to, if they wanted to curse a person, they would put spoiled butter under the sills of the windows or the door latch. And that would portray a curse onto the family home. And that would make all of the butter or all of the milk and the butter spoil from any cattle that were on the property, any cows. So that was one way that they fought back. The sons of the Milesins were thus forced to make a treaty with them, and ever since that time, the people of Ireland have honored this treaty by leaving offerings of milk and butter to the good people. A notable feature of the Sidhe is that they have distinct tribes ruled over by fairy kings and queens in each territory. So it would seem like the social order of the Sidhe kind of corresponds to the old aristocracy of Ireland, where they had kings and queens. So here's something else that was interesting. The Irish refer to the Sidhe as simply the gentry on account of their tall, noble appearance and silvery, sweet speech. Now, I do know in a lot of the legends and folklore that mortals were taken sometimes to do the Sidhe favors, but the mortals had to have their sight altered, or their eyes were spat in to give them fairy sight, or they had to rub some kind of herbal salve on their eyes to provide them with the sight that they needed to provide the service, be it childbearing or kind of midwifery to the Sidhe, so that, and most of the time, in most of the stories that I read, the it wasn't strictly like a Sidhe birthing. It was maybe a mortal Sidhe mix of a child that was being birthed, and that would need somehow, some way, that a mortal midwife had to be involved in the birthing of the child. But once the evening was over, then that person had to revert back to normal sight, and was forbidden from talking about it to anyone, lest they permanently lose their sight forever or lose their speech. So there were very severe ramifications for crossing the Sidhe and not cooperating with the agreements made with the Sidhe. And they're very, very tricky. You would have to be extremely careful when dealing with them, because one word or another that was conveyed wrong could bring about your death. So let's see, Georgia has a comment. Oh, she didn't have any stories, but she may have Irish ancestry. You need to look into that, Georgia, and see. Let's see if there's any other comments. Hey Shay, hey Karen, hey Greta. So a lot of other stories about the Sidhe, and this was interesting too. I read many stories and many folklore legends where large black dogs or black cats were associated with actually being fairies in disguise. And people would be walking along a path at night, or along a road, and see a large black dog guarding a gate. And that was kind of classically taken as one of the Sidhe. So that was another interesting thing as well. Let's see if okay. Also, horses were classically taken at night and ridden. And this comes up in a lot of stories, that horses were taken. And the fairies would come in at night, the Sidhe would come in at night and braid the horses' manes and tails. And that's why the farm owners would say the horse was ridden throughout the night, or taken up. The horse was taken up by the host. So these groups of Sidhe or fairies would take animals at night, like horses, and supposedly ride them throughout the countryside, sometimes taking mortals along with them, and they called it being taken up by the host. So some people were taken by the host, like frequently, on a regular basis, almost like alien abduction, and they like once a month would be taken up by the host and taken to different places throughout Ireland. And their observations of being in different areas of Ireland would be corroborated by people in that location, which was very, very interesting. And more than one folklore documentation of a story is accounted where a person was taken up by the host and taken to somebody who was dying's house to observe. Now, they were always forbidden from interacting with what was going on in any way, but they could observe what was happening and give their account the next day to the people around them, their family and friends, and then they would send couriers to that area to find out, did this actually happen? And it actually was documented that it did. And a lot of those were, like death of a loved one and that kind of thing. Now, the Sidhe, most of the accounts of the Sidhe are positive, although they are very secretive and they are very requiring of their own space. And if mortals encroached on that in any way, or were rude or slighted their honor, there were severe ramifications for that. Most oftenly, it is blindness, that they imparted either blindness or muteness to the person that offended them, or maybe saw something that they shouldn't have seen. So, and these different races that they talk about, the different tribes of the different races, so all of the different categories like banshees and leprechauns and pixies and kelpies or pukas, these are all these different tribes of the Sidhe. They're all Sidhe, but they're just different tribes or different races of the same type of being. The Gaelic word for Sidhe is Sheog, which refers to the otherworldly beings now called fairies. The Irish fairy is not like, they are not the diminutive fairies of other European countries. These are very tall, very handsome, in all accounts, very richly dressed, and their halls are richly decorated, and their places have like sumptuous food and drinks. Now, I've heard both accounts. There are accounts of things being, decorated in fantastic fashion, and lots of very lavish clothing and food, but then the accounts of the mortals that get taken up by the host and go into these places say that when the enchantment wears off and when the enchantment is gone, everything reverts back to like basic things like acorns and leaves, and all of the richness is suddenly gone in a second. There's many accounts of great halls being wandered upon by people going down the road at night and just happening to see like lights on and being drawn in or enchanted into these big palaces and these big halls of food and festivity, and then either being trapped and spending 20 or 30 years, which they consider only like 5 minutes. The person, if they're lucky enough to be returned from the host, will find that all of their friends and their family are long gone and long passed away, and they remain the same. Now, they will start aging once they return to the mortal world, but for the time that they're in the fairyland or Sidhe-land or under the hill, they do not age. So this is a timeless factor of the Sidhe. There's also a really cool account of, and let me find it. This was an account of I think St. Patrick. So, and I know I'm not going to get the words correct with this because my eyesight is kind of blurry this evening because I'm so tired, and this is hard to read. But I'm going to read this to you. The hold that the Tuatha De Danann had on the Irish mind was so strong that the new religion of Christianity could not shake it. In the colloquia of the ancients, a dialogue which supposedly took place between St. Patrick and the ghost, I'm not going to pronounce this right, Caoillte of Fianna. Patrick is amazed to see a fairy woman coming out of a cave of Cruchanan, wearing a green mantle and a crown of gold on her head. Whereas the fairy woman is young and beautiful, Caoillte himself is old and withered. When Patrick inquires of this, Caoiltte tells him that she is of the Tuatha De Danann, who are unfading, and I am of the sons of the Milesians, who are perishable and fade away. The Sidhe of the subterranean mounds are also seen as the Irish as descendants of the old agricultural gods of the earth, one of the most important being Crumcurach and the crooked one of the hill. So that was so interesting that we have an account of St. Patrick actually speaking with one of the Tuatha Dé Danann and one of the Milesans. So I found that really, really quite interesting because, as you know, the St. Patrick was the one that drove the demons off of the island with bells. And to this day, they still have the bells that St. Patrick used, I believe, in a museum in Dublin, which was so very interesting. Okay, so there are some magical places that the shining ones, or the Sidhe, are said to be tied to, and these are the lochs in Ireland, which are little lakes. They call them lochs. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And one of the most famous places is Loch Gur in County Limerick. And that's said to be a very magical place where many of the Sidhe kings and queens of Ireland exist. And the lake lies within a circle of low-lying hills. But once every 7 years, it appears as dry land where an entrance to the land of youth, or Turnanog, can be found. So that was so interesting and very, very, very special. And then there's another, let's see if I have some comments. Let me go back. I wanted to make sure I got you guys' comments. Hey Pamela, hey Amanda, hey AJ. Let's see. Hi to you from Hyde Park in New York. Hey Donna. And hey Sheila. Yes, everybody loves stories, but you know what? We think of them as this. You see that right there, Midsummer Night's Dream? We think of fairies as these little diminutive little creatures. These little bitty, that is not what the original legends actually go by. They're quite tall and very handsome and kind of almost glowing. So read some original Celtic folklore. You're going to be really surprised at some of the stories. And not all of them are favorable. Like, a lot of these Sidhe are actually quite dangerous to encounter. And and it's so interesting to read some of the stories. I might actually just pick out one of the most shocking stories that I've read and do that on one of our Monday night lives for you. So Pamela says, I'm an energy boost. Well, gosh, I wish I need to listen to myself tonight. So, do you guys have any questions or comments about the Sidhe that I can answer for you right now? They are extremely tricky and very difficult to deal with. Now, I was going to read or tell you about, now my family has a fairy story, and this actually was passed down to me from my mother. I'm going to tell you this story and then I'll have to hop off of here. But my mother and my aunt, they went to a party, and it was in a carriage. They were in a carriage, and they came upon like a little brook that the horse and carriage had to go over. But there at the beside of the brook, she said, was a fence with what to them looked like a pixie sitting on the fence. And I was like, Mom, what does a pixie look like? She said, well, it looked green, and it was small, and it was sitting on top of the fence, and it had the little pixie haircut. And she said it laughed and made the horse rear, and they thought that the carriage was going to turn over. But she and her sister survived that encounter, and they somehow got the carriage on to the house. And I remember that to this day, her telling me vividly about that story. And then I did go and ask my aunt, and she corroborated that story perfectly. So Patty has a statement here. Now I understand my attraction to black dogs, black cats, and I feel very comfortable around horses. Hey, Mike. Yes, absolutely. Ariana, you'll have to probably. She's asking what is a she. Go back and watch this once I post it. Just rewind and watch, and we go into all that detail on what exactly a she is. If you don't get the information that you want to know, just message me, and I will take an excerpt from this and I'll send it to you. This what I do is I put all my research together before I go to tell you all this stuff, and I try to get a little bit of everything for you to just kind of give you a wide view of what it is. Before I hop off, I want to remind everybody that this is the December giveaway, and this is going to be given away the second week of December on the Haunted Items Hunt. It's posted on my timeline. It shouldn't be too far down in there. Just tab back a little bit. You should be able to find the post pretty easily, and just put your name in the comments section to enter. Now, before I leave for the night, I want to give kisses to everybody. I want to tell you that next Monday, it's November the 28th, we're going to do auras. Now, shout out to me on this broadcast. Do you want just auras in general, or do you want to know how to change your aura, or how to find out what your aura is? Let me know down here in the comments which you would rather see and hear about next week. And also, I would like to know, there's so much to tell you about the she and the gentry, that if there's something specific you want to hear about in December, I'm going to do a more focused one on this in December. Let me know what you want to know about them for December, and I'll get to work on that, and we'll do that in December. So kisses from Kentucky, you guys. Have a wonderful Monday evening, and I will see you next Monday. And those of you who play Fun Friday, I will see you Friday. Bye!